The boat creaked as it cut through the fog, the sea black and heavy like tar. The air smelled of salt and decay, and the only sound was the relentless splash of waves hitting the hull. 6 travelers sat in silence, their faces pale under the faint glow of a dying lantern. None of them spoke of the rumors, though every mind carried the same whispers. Black Hollow Island, the cursed land where no one returned. The island appeared suddenly, a shadow rising from the fog. Trees stood like skeletal guardians, their twisted branches reaching out like claws. Beyond them, jagged cliffs framed the coast, and the ruins of abandoned houses glared like empty sockets. The boatman refused to go further, his eyes wide with terror. "Walk from here," he muttered, refusing even the touch of silver coins. The travelers climbed ashore. The ground was soft, almost breathing under their boots. An eerie silence pressed down, broken only by the distant cry of something inhuman. The fog thickened, clinging to their skin, and shapes moved just out of sight, shadows with too many limbs, crawling on the edges of perception. As they entered the village, the air grew colder. The houses were hollow shells, doors swinging open with whispers of the wind. One of the group, Sarah, swore she saw a figure staring from a shattered window, pale eyes, wide and hungry. When they ran to check, nothing remained but the stench of wet earth. The church bell rang. No one had touched it. Its rusty chime echoed through the emptiness, vibrating inside their skulls. A low growl followed, rumbling from the depths of the forest. Then came the footsteps, heavy, dragging, circling the group. They could not see the creature, only the shifting mist that curled around them. The lantern flickered, one by one, the faces of the travelers distorted in its glow. Teeth to sharp, eyes to hollow. Fear clenched every throat as realization struck. Perhaps the island had already chosen who would remain human and who would not. The ground quaked, a roar erupted, not from one beast but from many monsters awakened, their cries rising in a chorus of hunger. The fog swallowed the group whole, and the first scream pierced the night. The group advanced cautiously beyond the ruined church, their lantern trembling in Sarah's hand. The forest loomed ahead, its trees bent and twisted, their branches woven into a suffocating canopy. The air carried whispers low, insistent murmurs that seemed to seep from the bark itself. Each word was indistinct, yet the cadence formed a rhythm that scraped at the mind like claws. Tom, the youngest of them, swore he heard his own name carried in the voices. He turned suddenly, convinced someone had spoken just behind him. But there was only mist curling in shapes too unnatural to be whined. The soul beneath their boots squelched, damp as if soaked with blood. Strange symbols were carved into the trees, glowing faintly when touched by the lantern light, as though veins of fire ran beneath the wood. Deeper into the forest, the group stumbled upon cages, rusted and bent. Inside lay skeletal remains, twisted unnaturally, as if the bones themselves had rebelled against the body. Chains dangled overhead, swaying with no breeze. Sarah covered her mouth to stifle a scream when one skull turned to look at her, empty sockets burning faintly red for an instant before fading. The whispers grew louder, resolving into a chorus. The voices layered upon one another until it was impossible to distinguish human from beast, prayer from curse. The sound pulsed in their veins, quickening their hearts, drowning reason. One by one, the group fell into visions. Michael saw his mother calling him from between the trees, her eyes black voids. Sarah saw herself hanging from the branches, her body torn open, vines writhing through her ribs. Tom saw nothing, only darkness, swallowing everything but a monstrous grin that stretched across the forest like a scar. A sudden crack of branches broke the trance. From the shadows emerged creatures, hunched and broken, their limbs bent backwards, heads lolling loosely as if half detached. They moved with jerks, their joints snapping as though resisting their own bodies. Their mouths opened, releasing the same whispers that filled the forest. The group ran, stumbling through roots and thorns. But the forest bent around them. No matter the direction, the path twisted back, leading to the same rotting cages. The symbols on the trees now burned brighter, searing into their eyes, pulsing in rhythm with their pounding hearts. The lantern shattered as Sarah fell, plunging them into suffocating blackness. The whispers became screams, and from the dark, pale claws reached out. When the group finally stumbled free of the forest, they found themselves in another part of the island, where broken cottages leaned like corpses half buried in the soil. The village smelled of rot, though no living thing stirred. Windows yawned open, dark and watchful, and doors swung as if breathing with the wind. They approached the largest house, its roof sagging under moss and time. The moment Sarah touched the doorframe, the temperature dropped. Her breath smoked in the air, and frost crawled across the wood beneath her hand. Inside, the furniture was covered in thick cobwebs, though faint footprints stained the dusty floor. Someone or something still walked here. Michael shivered as he noticed portraits lining the walls. At first, they seemed like ordinary paintings of islanders, their faces stern, their eyes fixed. But as the lantern passed, their expression shifted. Mouths curled into cruel grins, eyes widened into pits of hatred. One portrait wept dark tears that dripped into the frame and vanished. They fled the house only to find the rest of the village alive with sound. Doors creaked open by themselves, shutters banged, and a low chant rolled through the air in a language none of them understood. The ground vibrated beneath their boots, and cracks opened in the cobblestones, revealing forms the size of arms writhing below. Tom froze, staring at the well in the center of the square. The chant grew louder, echoing from its depths. A foul wind erupted, carrying with it the stench of decay. Black hands clawed out from the darkness, skeletal fingers scraping against the stone. The group pulled him away, just as a figure dragged itself free, a half-rotted man with empty sockets and a jaw unhinged wide. His scream was no sound, but a blast of air that extinguished their lantern. In the dark, the entire village seemed to wake. Windows lit with faint, hellish glows. Shapes moved inside the houses, silhouettes with too many arms, too many heads. The chanting turned to laughter mocking, echoing, and then the bells rang again. Though there was no church in sight, each toll sent waves of pain through their skulls, visions flashing behind their eyes, blood-drenched streets, children with sewn mouths, fires consuming the sky. The island was showing them its past, or perhaps its future. When the final bell rang, silence fell. In the quiet, dozens of eyes opened in the dark, glowing faintly from every doorway. The village was not abandoned, it was waiting. Beyond the village lay a stone path, half swallowed by roots and rubble. The air thickened with the copper scent of blood, though no wounds bled. It led them to the mouth of a cavern, wide as a cathedral, where black water seeped and dripped like tears. Carvings lined the walls, figures kneeling before creatures with serpentine bodies and hollow skulls. Inside, the cavern widened into a chamber that pulsed like a beating heart. The floor was carved with concentric circles, channels filled with stagnant water glowing faintly blue. In the center rose an altar of obsidian, its surface cracked as though something clawed its way free long ago. Around it lay offerings, bones wrapped in cloth, jars of withered eyes, and skulls with their mouths sewn shut. As the group approached, the chanting returned this time. Not from memory or imagination, but from beneath the stone. Voices rose, thousands strong, as if the earth itself sang. The ground trembled, and the water began to boil. Tom collapsed, clutching his head, his eyes rolling white. Through him, another voice spoke, "You are chosen." His mouth stretched unnaturally, his teeth shattering as something black poured out, writhing like smoke. Sarah screamed, dragging him back, but the altar split open with a deafening crack. From within rose a creature unlike the others, towering and skeletal, its rib cage stretched wide. containing not a heart but a swarm of screaming faces. Its arms were long enough to scrape the cavern walls, ending in talons that dripped black ichor. Its skull was crowned with horns carved like the same runes that glowed in the forest. It moved with unbearable slowness, yet its presence crushed them, forcing their knees to buckle. The chanting reached a crescendo as the creature lowered its face toward them, empty sockets glowing with a fire that was not flame but hunger. Michael lifted the lantern though, barely aflame, remained and held it at the beast. The explosion lit the chamber, revealing countless other shapes moving in the shadows, crawling toward the altar. The fire clung to the monster's body, but instead of burning, it seemed to feed on it, swelling larger. Shrieking with joy, the cavern walls bled. Water turned red. The temple beneath the island had awakened, and the group realized the island was not merely cursed, it was alive. They ran blindly from the temple, the monster's shrieks echoing behind them, rattling the island itself. The path twisted, refusing to lead them anywhere but deeper into madness. The fog thickened until it became a wall, shifting with shapes that pressed their faces against it, faces they recognized, twisted reflections of their own. Sarah stumbled, falling to her knees. She screamed not from pain, but from the vision clawing at her mind. The ground melted into flesh, veins pulsating under her hands. She looked down and saw herself buried beneath the translucent skin, her own eyes staring back at her, begging for release. Michael dragged her forward, but his own torment began. Every tree whispered his name, every shadow formed his father's silhouette. He relived his worst memories: abuse, betrayal, loss, each replayed with monstrous exaggeration. He clawed at his own ears, but the voices came from within. Tom had stopped walking. His body jerked, his eyes gone black. The entity from the temple had not left him. It had claimed him. His mouth stretched open, splitting his cheeks, releasing a swarm of black insects that buzzed with whispers. His voice was layered, a chorus speaking in unison. The island is not a place. It is hunger. It is forever. The ground split. The village, the forest. Even the sea bent inward, as though the island folded itself around them. The sky bled red, streaks of lightning cracking like veins. The screams of thousands filled the air, not all human. Sarah and Michael held one another, trembling, as creatures poured from every shadow. Eyeless things with too many jaws, crawling infants with skeletal wings, and giants dragging chains of skulls. There was no escape, only descent. The island fed on their terror, twisting their sanity until they could no longer tell what was real. Their thoughts turned against them, memories rewritten, identities shattered. Michael looked at Sarah and no longer knew her face, only a stranger with hollow eyes. The island whispered promises, immortality, power, reunion with lost loved ones at the cost of surrender. The voices grew louder until resistance became impossible. In the distance, the temple's creature roared again. But this time it was not alone. The entire island roared with it. The world no longer resembled an island. It was a vast, throbbing wound in reality, where land, sea, and sky bled into one another. Sarah and Michael staggered forward, clinging to what fragments of sanity remained. Behind them, Tom was gone, his body consumed by the island, his voice now part of the endless whispers that tore through the air. Ahead, they saw a stone platform rising from the churning sea of blood. Upon it stood the remains of a colossal idol, half shattered, depicting a god with many faces, each frozen in agony. The platform called to them, dragging their steps forward despite their trembling. The closer they came, the more the voices grew coherent. Offer, sacrifice, stay. The words filled their skulls, echoing until thought itself dissolved. Michael clutched Sarah's hand, whispering through broken lips, "We can't. We must not." But the island's will was stronger. They mounted the platform, the stone slick with blood. From its cracks poured light, sickly, green and alive. In its glow, they saw the truth. Every traveler before them had stood here, their souls devoured, their bodies left as shadows wandering the island. The sea roared. The temple's monster emerged from the depths, its body larger than before, crowned with screaming faces. It bent low, waiting. The island demanded one final offering. Sarah's eyes widened with clarity. She pushed Michael back, her voice breaking. Run. Before he could stop her, she stepped onto the altar, her body writhing as black tendrils pierced her skin. She did not scream. Instead, her eyes glowed with unearthly fire, and her voice joined the chorus. Michael fell to his knees, weeping, as the monster devoured her essence. But something changed. Instead of silence, the island quaked with rage. The offering was not enough. It wanted more. It wanted him. Michael stood, his face twisted not with fear but with defiance. He screamed into the void, a sound that split the air. He threw himself into the sea of blood, dragging with him the burning remains of a lantern he had clutched since the beginning. The explosion lit the sky. Fire consumed the sea, the temple of the monsters. The island shrieked, writhing in pain as it collapsed upon itself, pulled into nothingness. Silence followed. When the smoke cleared, there was no trace of the island, only endless water under a pale dawn. But the whispers lingered soft, distant, promising return. The curse of Black Hollow was never broken. It was only waiting. The sea lay calm, a mirror of pale silver under the rising sun. No trace of the island remained, no ruins, no smoke, no corpses. Just endless water stretching in every direction to the world beyond. Black Hollow had vanished, erased like a nightmare fading with morning light. But in the silence, beneath the surface, something stirred. The whispers had not been drowned. They had only sunk deeper. Faint at first, they rose like bubbles from the abyss. Voices tangled together in a language no human tongue could form. The water rippled without wind, glowing faintly with the same green light that had burned within the altar. Far across the horizon, sailors aboard a fishing vessel noticed a sudden change in the sea. Their nets came back heavy with bones instead of fish. One man swore he saw hands clawing at the waves, pale and rotting. Another claimed he heard a woman's voice calling his name, promising him eternity if he only leapt into the water. The captain prayed, but prayer was useless here. For every word he spoke to heaven, the ocean answered louder. The Black Hollow Island was gone from maps, but not from the world. It was no longer bound to land. It had become the sea itself. And now, it was hungry again. The curse was not broken. It was free.